We appreciate each and every one of you. Before we go to the protocols of the day, we are going to have a highlight of what we have done in the last few days. In the last few days, in preparation to this conference, we did some parades that took real people, real electric vehicles out there to the people, and we did almost 1,800 kilometers of actual moving out, and we are going to start with that so that we see what happened. We are going to start with a video that is going to show the parade from Nairobi to Kisumu and back. Thank you. Thank you. That is a short video, a short clip. We will be seeing more as we go. That was to set the scene. And I am glad to say that they made it and they will share their experiences here. At this juncture, allow me to welcome Hesbon Mose, who is the president of EMAC, Electric Mobility Association of Kenya. He's going to start us off. Pigeni makofi as he comes forward. He is the president of the association. So, Mr. President, karibu, talk to your people.
He's using big words. I am a very small P president, but thank you for the invite. Honorable Wandai, CS for Energy, PS Washira, we've been here for a few years together. Sebastian Groth, Ambassador from Germany. Hannah, we've been working together. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I think there's so much pressure because they told me I'm setting the mood of the day. So if I say something, please laugh for the sake of laughing. All right. I do have a presentation, if they can pull it up. So the e-mobility has introduced me. I'm the e-mobility champion from EMAC, and I do support the growth, advocacy, and growth of e-mobility. Started 3 years ago. We do have 47 organizations registered with EMAC and continue growing. So that's to show you how much. We started with 7, 9 about 3 years ago. Now it's 47. Next slide. So today I'll be looking at number one, looking globally, how globally EVs are doing. We'll look at Africa, bring it closer to home. We'll talk about Kenya, and most relevantly look at the energy sector, which is KPLC, then our regulations, and basically looking at our road ahead. Globally, 2025, we had more than 20 million EVs registered, new vehicles registered in 2025. 62% of those vehicles were in China. This is to show you the trend. 25% of the global new vehicles registered are EV. So 1 in every 4 vehicles registered globally are EV globally. I think, move on to the next slide. This is what's happening in Africa. In Ethiopia, they banned ICE about 2 years ago. Rwanda banned the new registration of ICE motorcycles last year. Uganda is looking at 2030. Nigeria is looking at 2040. But most importantly, Ghana and Morocco are looking at a gradual phased approach on how to start implementing EVs in the country. This is to reduce introducing vehicle efficiency regulations. This is where you bring fuel efficient vehicles, plug-in vehicles, and then end up to EVs. So they're doing a phased approach. Looking at Ethiopia, which is our neighbor, because when we talk about Europe, you'll say it doesn't have context in Kenya. When you look at Ethiopia, last year they had 115,000 new EVs registered in the country. That's just our neighbor. I think they've been growing between 100 to 200% annually for the last 3 to 4 years. And that's to show context that Ethiopia is making progress because of the decisions that they make from a policy perspective. And you can see the results, basically it's growing. In context of Kenya, in relation to that, I think from the previous slide is looking at what does it take for Kenya to actually leapfrog and move ahead and actually take that approach to grow e-mobility. Looking at Kenya today, everybody here has been affected by the fuel prices. In the last 3 months, they've gone up by more than 20%. The government has actually made some subsidies, reducing taxes from 16% to 8%. And within that 3 months, basically, they've forgone basically 28 billion that they should have collected, and that has been forgone. Looking at the importation of fuel in the country between July 2024 and July 2025 has been 575 billion, and transport accommodate basically at 72%, actually use 72% of the imported fuel. So most importantly, where we are today is the risks that Kenya poses with the fuel importation. 100% of the fuel imported in the country Kenya imports 100% of the fuel used in the country. And when you look at the last 3 years, we have grown from 2,000 vehicles cumulatively registered in 2023 to 25,000 in 2025. What is causing this? This is basically the policies that were created about 3 years ago. The Finance Act was able to accommodate EVs. From an energy perspective, they were able to create an e-mobility tariff, and that's what is actually sparking the growth of e-mobility. Today, we stand at 33,800 vehicles, end of last year. By now, we are more than 40,000. I think key numbers here is comparison to Ethiopia, our neighbors. It was 115,000, so Kenya cannot be really proud in comparison to Ethiopia, who is our neighbor. All right, next slide. And from the growth, what is the context of the growth? From the 24,000 new registered vehicles in the country last year, motorcycles actually took 15% of the 149 motorcycles registered last year. So motorcycles are basically taking a leapfrog, and actually they're taking a big market share in the e-mobility registration. Tuk-tuks and buses actually are taking also big market share. The biggest gap we have in Kenya specifically is passenger vehicles, buses, medium and heavy duty vehicles, which don't have incentives today. You can see the percentage growth every year. Today, we don't have any new heavy duty vehicles registered in the country, zero. The heavy duty vehicle we see on the parking lot today, we had to borrow it from Rwanda. And the way it got to Rwanda, it came to the port in Mombasa, passed through Kenya, go to Rwanda. So to put context in terms of how behind we are from a policy perspective. Next slide. Energy consumption, this is relevant. In 2025, the e-mobility consumed 9.1 gigawatts. Cumulatively, I think last month, Kenya Power reported that the revenue gains from, I think in the last 3 years, was about 382 million. Last year by itself was about 170 to 180 million. And the contribution, and I need to put this into context in terms of this peak and off-peak. When you look at the volumes, buses in 2025, registered buses were about 160. Motorcycles was 32,000. When you look at peak and off-peak numbers, when you look at motorcycles consume 4.8 gigawatts from the 9.1, buses, which is 160, consumed 3.7. So it's really close to the motorcycles. 160 buses consuming 3.7, 32,000 motorcycles consuming 4.8. And what you need to, key observation on this slide is looking at peak and off-peak. When you look at peak, motorcycles consumed during peak hours, which is 3.1, and buses about 70% consumed during off-peak hours. And when you talk about peak and off-peak, there is an e-mobility tariff, which is 8 shillings during off-peak and 60 shillings during peak hours. This is on the base. When you add up the taxes and levies, it's basically about 15 shillings and 24 shillings respectively for peak and off-peak. What have we achieved so far? This is a survey that was done about 2 weeks ago. Capital investment in the country has been $191 million that has come in through e-mobility. This is e-mobility companies giving a survey and say, how much capital have they brought into the country? 38,000, 94% of that is motorcycles have been assembled locally. Looking at about 1,520 charging points, 95% of them is actually for motorcycles, which are swap points. Then when you look at employment, I need to pause there. We have employed 1,000 plus full-time employees working in this industry. All right? Do we need a bigger hand on that? To expound on that, when you talk about employment, the industry has trained more than 12,000 going through these companies. These are interns, technicians that have gone through, and actually they're working out there as freelancers. Most importantly, the 32,000 motorcycles out here, they're saving 40 to 50% with a new price increase in fuel, and that saving is about $5 a day. That is $100 a month. $1,200 that we're putting more money in these riders' pocket, and they should have been out of business, but actually it's extra income to these riders who are saving moving from ICE to electric vehicles. Moving forward, we look at, we can't go with this conference without putting a slide with the declaration that we received. I think from the e-mobility sector, we actually celebrated this declaration. I think the question that was asked upstairs, when will this happen? And I think I will push it back to the CS and the authorities to tell us how can we support to implement it tomorrow. All right, so next slide. What does this mean? Today, when you look at the EAC, which is where the import duty is being discussed, today we are at 25% to 35% import duty for vehicles. The higher the vehicle, the higher the import duty. Basically, the declaration from the president, this is how it's going to look like. We'll just put zeros across from top to bottom. And just note, is the lithium-ion batteries which are used for swapping motorcycles are the only ones that we do have incentive, which is at 0%. However, with the presidential declaration, is looking at import duty to be 0%, which will help in terms of reducing the cost of these vehicles. And hopefully we can register a few heavy-duty vehicles in the next few months so we can document it for this year. When you look at the Finance Act, we did present our proposal to Parliament last week, and our proposal was basically slightly different than what we've had in the last 3 years. In 2023, the Finance Act, we were able to get zero rating for buses, bicycles, motorcycles, and lithium-ion batteries, which was zero rated. It's been zero rated between 2023 and 2025. So looking at our proposal is maintaining that zero rating. I think the whole government is looking towards exempt, but since we are introducing a new product in the country, the request to the Finance Committee was actually maintaining that zero rating. This is also in alignment with what the President is trying to do to actually create that critical mass with that 100,000 vehicles in the next few years. With that, I think the other regulatory aspects like what Ghana and Morocco are doing, this is putting regulations around fuel efficiency regulations. And this is where we don't want Kenya to be a dumping ground, right? So 90% of the vehicles in this country are imported. On that 90%, how can we start regulating the kilometers per liter that is being driven by these vehicles to actually that will lower the importation of fuel. So that's a discussion that we need to actually start having with the Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Transport to look at what regulations we need to put in place so that this fuel efficiency regulation will be put in place. This is for ICE, we'll move to hybrids, plug-in electric vehicles, then eventually head to electric vehicles in the country. Projections. Based on the presidential direction, we did a projection on how the future will look like with that declaration. We are looking at today, last year we registered 24,000. Based on the fuel prices, adoption will increase slightly this year, so we'll probably double what we registered last year to 55,000. Fast forward to 2030, we are looking at 377,000 vehicles registered in 2030. Significant increase. What does that mean from an energy perspective? The projection using the 9.1 energy consumption that we did with the 33,000 vehicles registered last year, we are moving from 9.1 to 121 gigawatts in 2030, and cumulatively that's going to be 314 gigawatts energy that will be consumed by e-mobility in 2030. What does that mean financially? That 314 meaning that it's a 5.8 billion shillings that actually, I don't know if KPLC will be ready to accommodate us as we get to that point. I think these numbers basically speaks volumes in terms of where we are heading. If we were to adopt the presidential declaration, the growth will significantly be significant, and hopefully that can help increase the revenue locally here, reduce importation of fuel. What do we need from our side? So number one is when can we implement the presidential declaration? This is the import duty free on EV vehicles in the country, including our proposal that we submitted to finance bill to move from exempt to zero rating, and the gaps that we have for medium heavy duty vehicles to be reduced, to be included in the exemptions, and then import duty also to be waived. Initiate the discussion and implementing this vehicle efficiency regulations to reduce the importation of non-efficient vehicles, which are not efficient, fuel efficient, to the country. We want to prevent ourselves as Europe implements and increases the adoption of EVs. We stand at risk by being a dumping ground of these vehicles in the country. So we need to be prepared and actually implement regulations like vehicle efficiency regulations. I think most importantly, as we're talking about the parade, which will happen last week, I personally went from Mombasa to Nairobi. I usually talk about range anxiety. For the first time in my life, I experienced range anxiety. We were at Sultan Hamoud, and we were worried if the hill from Sultan Hamoud to Nairobi will make it with our vehicles. So we had to stop for a few hours to actually boost and charge versus sleeping on the road. Previous slide. And most importantly, the last one is how do we contribute as e-mobility in the country? When we get to that 377,000 vehicles registered in 2030, today the same vehicles are using the roads today. We need to start contributing to that road maintenance levy. So I think the proposal that we are discussing with the government, looking at how can we start contributing to that road maintenance levy once we actually reach that critical mass. And my key takeaway and key message to the Honorable Opio Undai, I think last night, I don't know if it's news, sometimes in this country, sometimes news is news. We had the proposal from KPLC, which we were aligned, that we do maintain our 8 and 16 shillings on peak and off peak on a base, but we do have a 15,000 cap on the energy consumption. From a bus perspective, 3 buses will consume that 15,000. 24 batteries in a station that's swapping 100 motorcycles in a day will consume that 15,000. 33,000, that 15 cap is a huge hindrance for growth, and hopefully that can be reconsidered or bring EMAC on the table to discuss that as we look at growth of e-mobility in the country. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Hezbon. We appreciate. Before we proceed, we are going to see or watch a video on what happened on the Mombasa route. Media team. Sound, please.
Climate Center, we have this electric truck where in Mombasa, here in Mombasa, and it arrived empty, but it will return to Nairobi carrying a load. This is intentional. We want real-world data on vehicle performance, charging behavior, range, operational efficiency, and the actual business conditions.
As a county, I've identified various charging points, potential charging points across the county. And we are talking with Kenya Power to make sure that these points are connected with electricity, sufficient electricity, and free phase for that matter.
As a county, you already know we have the Climate Change Action Plan, which requires of us to reduce the carbon footprint from the transport sector. And this is one of the identified milestones. And we want to commit that at least in the next financial year, we will do something so that when we come here after 1 year, we can give testimony that we've started somewhere and we are moving forward.
Therefore, as the utility, we have a duty, a sovereign duty, a national duty to power electric vehicles. It is not a favor, or it is not. It is a duty which we have to carry out on behalf of the country. That every vehicle which comes into the country must get reliable and adequate energy to be on the road.
You being here today is amazing because having a vehicle on electric charge from Nairobi to Mombasa is a long journey. That's about 480 kilometers from Nairobi. So, and you can imagine the first charging point was done in Voi after the entire journey. So it is a great process.
Thank you very much. President Mose made some pertinent comments and made some questions and challenges, which we have the right people on this room to answer them. 147 years ago, Thomas Edison joked that they were going to make electricity so cheap, only rich people would burn candles. That was in 1879. Today, there are people here in this room who will tell us that we are going to make that electricity affordable to change our transport systems, such that only very rich people will be using fossil fuel in their cars. Today I walked around the petrol stations, and when you look at the prices, they look like telephone numbers. Anyway, right now, we are going to welcome the people who are going to answer those questions. I am glad to welcome Engineer David Siengo. He is the acting managing director for Kenya Power. And after that, he's going to welcome the rest of the people so that they answer those questions and so that they can tell us, are we getting there? Tupigie makofi Engineer Siengo as he leads the team that is going to answer those questions that have just been raised by all of us here. Karibu sana.
Thank you. Honorable CS Energy, Pio Andai, the German Ambassador to Kenya, His Excellency Sebastian Groth, the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Energy, PS Alex Washira, Board Chairman, Madam Joy Brenda, and the Board of Directors present here today, the Head of Cooperation of the European Union, I hope I'll get the name right, Joge Pinon, the GIZ Kenya team, our very able partners, and very happy to allow me to say, led by Ms. Hannah Selian. I'm tempted to use the word great Hannah. She's been with us for quite a while and has made the energy sector quite energized. The energy sector, the energy sector CEOs that are present, very happy this year to be joined by CEO Ketako, Acting Engineer Kibias, CEO GDC, and the Acting CEO Kenya Pipeline also present. The other CEOs who are present feel very much welcome. The KPLC management team, representatives from the NAMATA, Nairobi Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Electric Mobility Association of Kenya, led by your president, Bwana Hesbon Mose. Thank you for your great partnership also over the years. Media partners, fellow industry leaders in the e-mobility space, ladies and gentlemen. CS, welcome very much to this year's e-mobility, the fourth e-mobility conference, led by Kenya Power and with very great and able partners, as you've heard. And we are happy to welcome you, Bwana CS, to this great event. Allow me, on behalf of my MD, who is outside the country, to try and fit in these big shoes. And so that I don't stumble in them, allow me to read the remarks as I welcome us this morning. Good morning, all. I am not sure how we all arrived at KICC today, whether by electric vehicle, buses, bikes, motorbikes, or other means of transport. But I'm sure about what we are sure about at KPLC today is that e-mobility, as you've heard from some of the opening comments, is the future and the next frontier in Kenya. At Kenya Power, we are proud to be at the forefront of championing this great transition. As Bwana Hesbon Mose is challenging us on the numbers, I think I want to challenge him back. The 5 billion revenue he is looking at I was thinking about how about we work at a figure of 10% of our annual revenues and target somewhere in the range of 20 billion. I think it's possible. Having seen the motor transport sector, especially the high volume cargo transport getting EV at this time of the year, I think we are quite running ahead of the pack. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome you to the 4th E-Mobility Stakeholders Conference and Expo convened by Kenya Power for the 4th consecutive year, with the support of our friends and partners at GIZ Kenya. This conference reflects in many ways the commitment both KPLC, the Ministry of Energy and the sectors that are responsible, transport and industry, the commitment to drive e-mobility through awareness creation, stakeholder engagement, and practical forums like this, where industry players can exchange ideas and accelerate the uptake of electric mobility in Kenya. What we are seeing from a sales growth perspective, and you've seen the sharp growth to about 113%, 113-fold actually, in just under 3 years, from 13,500 kilowatt hours in July 2023 to over 1.5 million kilowatt hours in April 2026. These are clear evidence that adoption is no longer a distant possibility, but a mainstream reality. Honorable CS, over the same period, monthly revenue from EV charging has grown, and you have seen the numbers from 1 million shillings to over 35 million shillings in that period. Cumulatively, the sector, that is the e-mobility sector, has recorded over 17 million kilowatt hour in sales, amounting to the 382 million Kenya shillings in revenue. There's a big leap, but we see even higher potential. November 2025 was a defining moment for the country. This is when we actually crossed the 1 million kilowatt hours threshold in a single month for the first time. And since then, the monthly volumes have consistently remained above that level, showing that the market has moved into a new phase with a high volume adoption. Yesterday, Honorable CS, we have actually seen the contractor who is doing the road between Rironi and Maimahiu visit our Naivasha office and place an application for a charging station that is going to consume, the demand that they have actually applied for is 2.3 megawatts, 1 point. If we cumulatively say we are doing the corridor between Mombasa and Nairobi with such charging points, and that's why I challenge EMAC and our friends, I think the numbers will really scale. Nairobi region currently accounts, CS, as you've heard, most of the operators are currently in Nairobi. A few are outside Nairobi, and we thank EMAC for the push they have done, especially in the transport industry. We are seeing that openings in Coast, Kiambu area, western regions are also showing strong growth. This confirms that the opportunity is national and that our focus must be to support and uptake beyond the capital city. The challenge now is to sustain this growth responsibly by aligning policy, expanding infrastructure, strengthening grid readiness, mobilizing investment and deepening partnerships, and that is why we keep this commitment to convene this conference, and we are here for the 4th time again this year. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 4 years, Kenya Power, GIZ, and EMAC, I call this the current working trio who has helped to really excite the market on the area of EV. These 3 entities, together with government agencies, we thank also Ministry of Energy for allowing the last tariff review, the e-mobility tariff, as has been mentioned by their chair. It has really helped to also catalyze the industry. Ministry of Transport, releasing the policy much more recently. The challenge now is to sustain this growth. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 4 years, Kenya Power, GIZ, Kenya, and EMAC, together with government agencies and development partners, have grown the conference into a leading regional platform for dialogue, innovation, and partnership. I always like that last slide by EMAC, where they throw the hard questions, and we have to retreat after we finish the conference to think about them. We are also operating in a more enabling environment supported by tax incentives, growing private sector innovation, and the recently launched National E-Mobility Policy. This year's theme, Honorable CS, aligning policy, infrastructure, development, and partnerships to scale e-mobility in Kenya, is therefore timely. It speaks directly to the issues that must now be addressed if we are to move from early adoption to scale e-mobility in the country. At Kenya Power, our commitment is to create awareness, support the market, and drive the adoption of e-mobility in the country. No single organization can achieve this transformation alone. And I thank all our partners for helping achieve this and making this conference a strong and growing movement. As we scale, we must be deliberate. E-mobility is not only about vehicles, it is about reliable charging infrastructure, grid capacity, consumer confidence, safety standards, financing, insurance, battery management, skilled technicians, local assembly, and after-sales support. It is also about inclusion. The transition must serve not only private car owners, but also public transport, which, as we have seen from the numbers, it's public transport that can grow the numbers even much faster, especially on the consumption side. Over the next 2 days, we will discuss policy implementation, charging infrastructure, regulatory readiness, financing, insurance, and grid planning. A people-centered mobility, private sector innovation, technology showcases, and practical pathways to accelerate uptake. For Kenya Power, this conversation is important for 3 reasons. 1, we must ensure that the grid is ready to support the growing demand from electric mobility, and this calls for proper planning, timely network reinforcement, and close engagement with investors and charging operators. A lot of the questions we receive from people who are doing e-mobility in the country, one of the questions we receive is the grid ready? And I think I want to just say, from a capacity perspective, the Kenyan grid right now has a capacity to absorb 10,000 megawatts. In terms of the transformation capacity that is installed, that is the transformers across the country. Our peak demand is at 24, 44 megawatts, which means there is room. In fact, everybody who asks me whether the grid is ready, we tell them, bring the chargers first. So the grid is ready, and I can confirm that where we have challenges, when applications come and we have to place charging infrastructure in the middle of places where we need reinforcement, we are quick to do that. Secondly, we must support safe and standardized charging infrastructure. Customer confidence will depend on safety, reliability, accessibility, and a clear understanding of where and how charging services are available. One of the things we are looking forward to, I know most of the people operating charging infrastructure have their own apps which show where they are located, but it will be a good thing if we had a national one, because of the issues of range anxiety, where we can actually see all of them at one point. We know it's a business issue, but it will be good to catalyze the discussion. Third, in the lead up to this year's event, Kenya Power, in partnership with GIZ, EMAC, and the Kune Foundation, conducted awareness parades. They have been mentioned here, along Nairobi-Mombasa and Nairobi-Kisumu routes, culminating in a grand Nairobi parade on the Sunday, 24th of May. These parades demonstrated the readiness of these key corridors while raising public awareness of Kenya's e-mobility agenda. We also flagged off e-bikes in Mombasa Island, that is SKPLC, for use by our meter readers, demonstrating how electric mobility can be integrated into our day-to-day operations. In addition, we unveiled newly installed EV chargers in Voi and Nyali, both in the coast region. These chargers are designed to catalyze EV uptake and support our own operational needs. Waziri, for all the chargers that we install, like the one we did at Stima Plaza, we actually decided to install it outside our compound so that it will be accessible to the public. And even before we started charging, it was it's a place which was occupied throughout. Up to morning, 3 a.m., we found taxis charging there. And it told us the story that once charging infrastructure is available, then the public uptakes very quickly. I want to assure all stakeholders, and this is important, that we are not in competition in the market on charging infrastructure. Ours was to excite the market, catalyze and show possibilities, install chargers at the midpoints of long journeys so that private investors can now come in after as the adoption scales. We are not in competition. Our role is to enable the market, support investor and customer confidence, and ensure the grid is ready for this transition. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, Kenya has a unique advantage. Our electricity is predominantly generated from renewable sources. It practically means that when you are charging the battery, beyond the issue of transition to cleaning transport, we are actually charging our battery infrastructure with clean energy, which I understand from the people who are doing this transition. There is green energy, there is blue energy, there is gray energy. Ours is green. I will not debate on the others. So our energy is generated from green sources, and that means as we electrify transport, we are also creating an opportunity to decarbonize mobility using clean power. E-mobility can reduce emissions, lower transport costs, create jobs, stimulate local assembly and innovation, grow electricity demand, sustainability, improve grid utilization, and support Kenya's broad economic transformation agenda. But this opportunity will only be realized through strong collaborations like we will have and continue to create in the next 2 days. I want to sincerely thank the government of Kenya through the Ministry of Energy and that of Transport, the German government. We are very, very happy, of course, through your agency GIZ, who have been very supportive, not only on e-mobility, but also on the grid side, and EMAC, a very able partner, and just last month, we actually were signed up as, I don't know whether we are the latest members of EMAC because of our fleet. We are now members of EMAC, not just as supporting them on the energy side. We want to thank NAMATA for their partnership and cooperation, the European Union, the ministry I had mentioned, all private sector players, development partners, exhibitors and sponsors, and all stakeholders joining hands in this 4th e-mobility conference that is starting today. Let us use this conference to move the conversation to execution, from early adoption to scale, and from individual efforts to coordinated national movement. When you see those EV parades and people just volunteering to drive their own vehicles to these distances, it's a great catalyst to helping everybody that is met to see e-mobility as a possibility. I wish you and all of us fruitful deliberations and a successful 4th e-mobility and stakeholders conference and Expo. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's now my singular honor and pleasure to welcome our board chair, Madam Joy Brenda Masinde. We can welcome her with a clap. That clap is not very energetic. Please keep clapping until she arrives. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. If you refuse to clap, we switch off the lights. Today is a proud day for Kenya Power, not because it's our 4th e-mobility conference, but because of the growth and the cooperation that we have seen. Honorable C.S. Wandai, Ambassador Groth, our PS, Washira, Ms. Hannah Salian, Honorable Pinon, I don't want to hazard the first name, my fellow directors who are here, the sector MDs, and all other protocol observed. Good morning. It's my pleasure to join you in this 4th annual e-mobility conference and Expo. This is a platform that continues to grow in relevance in Kenya as Kenya positions herself for the next phase of transport and energy transformation. The conference comes at a very pivotal point. There's a global shift towards electric mobility, and it's no longer a future conversation. It is already here with us. It's already taking shape across economies, as we have seen in comparison with our neighbors. And this shift, therefore, begs the question. It's not whether electric mobility will happen. It is how deliberately, how inclusively, and how effectively we will build the ecosystem to support this transition. Kenya has already signaled the commitment to be viewed both as an environmental opportunity to reduce emissions, but also as a catalyst for economic opportunity, to attract investment, to create jobs, to support innovation, and to stimulate local assembly and strengthen Kenya's position as a leader in the sustainable mobility in Africa. I would welcome you to visit our booth and see some of the innovations that are available. Every year it gets more and more exciting as we build Kenyan capacity to innovate in this sector. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya has a strong foundation for this transition. More than 90% of our electricity that is generated is already green. As Engineer Siengo said, as guys, we are green people. The maneno ya gray and black, we don't know. And this renewable energy forms a good basis for us to give the country a unique advantage, an opportunity to power mobility through clean and locally available energy. At Kenya Power, we view e-mobility as a strategic part of the growth of our company. The company's sustainability strategy identifies e-mobility as a key intervention in supporting climate action, innovation, and sustainable development. It also prioritizes grid modernization and improved reliability to support emerging demand sectors and the future of economic growth. And that's why I'm encouraged to see our fellow sector players here today, because it is a collaborative effort. It's just not a matter of the grid being ready. All of us working together will have enough energy to power Kenya in the future. In this regard, therefore, my board has adopted a long-term strategic direction towards progressive electrification of Kenya. This is through various means. For example, the electrification of our own fleet. When we started our first e-mobility conference, I think we were less than 10 e-vehicles. And now we are making progress. We're not yet quite there, but we did make a promise as a board that we are moving towards turning our entire or majority of our fleet to be e-vehicles. And it's not just this electrification in a cosmetic sense, but to make operational and economic sense, including two-wheelers for meter readers, field operations, staff transport vehicles, material handling equipment such as forklifts, reach stackers, and other related machinery. As technology advances and operational needs evolve, this transition will progressively extend to additional fleet to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve operational efficiency, and lowering long-term costs. There's also the opportunity to earn a little bit from carbon credits as we do this transition. The board also remains committed to supporting investments and strengthen the network and ensure that the grid can support large-scale electric mobility adoption. This calls for proper planning, appropriate standards, customer confidence and safety, innovation, and close collaboration with public and private sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, the growth of e-mobility will not be driven by one institution alone. It requires a coordinated ecosystem involving government players, regulators, our utilities, financiers, manufacturers, transport operators, and development partners. It will also benefit the wider community by supporting public transport, logistics, two- and three-wheelers, county transport systems, small businesses, and ordinary Kenyans who need affordable, reliable, and cleaner mobility options. There is one of the exhibitors who has a three-wheel ambulance that charges on just, your regular plug. It doesn't need any specialized charging system. So such innovatives make this not just an urban comfort, but it's available to the general population and can be used and deployed anywhere in the country. I appreciate my fellow board members for their commitment and their support and guidance as we position Kenya Power to respond to these emerging opportunities. The first e-mobility conference, when we were having it, I think, at Safari Park, one of the commitments the board made was to try and future-proof the company. And in future-proofing, it means you expand the space in which we do business. So we don't just sell power in homes. Let's see how we can inspire the consumption of power for the business, but not just that, moving the country forward to achieve its goals in being more green and in being more resilient. This, like this Strait of Hormuz madness, if we were all driving EVs, would be so good right now. Finally, I sincerely thank all our partners, our exhibitors, our sponsors, our delegates, the stakeholders who have joined us for this year's conference. Your participation reflects the shared commitment required to move Kenya's e-mobility agenda from policy to practical implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a fruitful deliberation over the next 2 days, and I thank you so much for coming to our e-mobility conference. Allow me to welcome Honorable George Pinon to make his brief comments. Asanteni sana.
the Honorable Opio Wandai, Cabinet Secretary for Energy, Petroleum, Alice Washira, PS Energy, the Acting Managing Director and CEO of Kenya Power, Engineer David Siingo, Madam Joy Brenda Masinde, the Chairman of the Board of Directors of Kenya Power, Excellency Sebastian Groth, German Ambassador to Kenya, my colleague Hannah Salian, the Program Director for Energy and Climate in GIZ, and all distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. Good morning. It's a real honor to address this gathering today on behalf of our ambassador to Kenya, Henriette Geiger. She flew yesterday to Brussels in order to contribute preparing for the visit of His Excellency President Ruto, who will be in Brussels in the 8th of June to discuss our cooperation, and I'm quite sure cooperation on renewable energy between EU and Kenya, in particular in mobility, will be on the table at those meetings. Indeed, this fourth conference on e-mobility stakeholders and Expo comes a pivotal time. It's very clear for the events all around us. It's pivotal time not only for Kenya, for the world in general. We can say that the transition to sustainable mobility is no longer an aspiration, a distant aspiration. It is an urgent necessity. We see it that way. It's a necessity that demands bold action, it demands strong partnerships, it demands a shared vision for the future. On the EU side, we see Kenya not just as a participant in this global shift towards e-mobility. We see you as a country that wants to lead on that. And you, of course, build on very solid foundations with over 90% of your grid electricity sourced already from clean energy. It's quite impressive. It's not only impressive, but it shows as well how when ambition meets action, what is possible. And we would really, we will hope as well that this is the spirit that will drive your efforts to scale up e-mobility here in Kenya in a way that is inclusive, that is sustainable, that is economically transformative. On the EU side, this transition is critical. We have set ourselves in our borders a non-negotiable and very ambitious goal. We want to become climate neutral by 2050. And this is not just about meeting targets, this is about securing what we see as a need to secure a livable future for the next generation. If you look at our policies, European Green Deal, the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, you will see that these are not abstract policies. They are concrete roadmaps to achieve these goals. And at the heart of these policies and these strategies is a simple truth. With transportation is indeed one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases, and it needs to be decarbonized. So electrifying mobility, powered through by renewable energy, is not an option as we see it, it's a cornerstone of our climate strategy. Of course, if we want to have a global impact, we need partners. And we see Kenya as one of the key partners. We think we have shared values, we think we have shared challenges, we think there are shared opportunities. We have, in addition, already quite close links. For example, the EU-Kenya Economic Partnership Agreement, which is not only strengthening trade, but also unlocking private sector investment. I think in the last decade, 155 billion Kenyan shillings have been mobilized from the EU private sector, thanks to it. And we want to scale this up. So, and we see Kenya as a partner as well because your leadership on the renewable energy sector is undeniable. From the Climate Summit in 2023 to launching the EU-Kenya Green Hydrogen Strategy, you have shown what it means to innovate with a purpose. And as you will be focusing on e-mobility, we at the EU, we don't want to be just distant observers, we want to be active partners. Now, how to be active partners, what we can offer and propose. Basically, what we want is to do two things. We want to invest. And we want for that to make available concessional resources, but we want also to mobilize, help mobilizing EU private sector, but also the Kenyan one. This we do with our flagship offer, investment offer, we call Global Gateway. So what is happening at this stage? First, we are already working with the government of Kenya in identifying and developing high-impact mobility projects, particularly around green urban mobility in Nairobi. This is because we think a sustainable transport system is not just about reducing emissions, it's also about improving lives, easing congestion, creating healthier and more livable cities. Secondly, we want to continue to support Kenyan energy sector, not only for it to be resilient at present, but in particular to be ready to meet the future demands. And we have seen how demands will increase on the sector as such. For that, we can finance capacity building, we can finance technical assistance, but most of all, as I was saying, what we want is to undertake major investments to strengthen infrastructure that power this transition. Thirdly, we want to mobilize, as I was saying, or help mobilizing EU private sector investment, also Kenyan one. To do that, we have an array of financial tools, including, but not only, particularly tools to de-risk investments, so that we can scale up what is coming from the private sector at this point of time. Finally, and fourthly, what we want is to achieve scale in the amount of our investments. And to do that, what we do is we work with our EU member states, with the financial institutions. We bring our resources together, it's what we call Team Europe, and the way we do that, there are several ways, but one of the main ways to do that is to blend our grants from EU institutions with the loans that the EU Development Financial Institution can offer. This makes them concessional enough to be interesting for Kenya, in particular as well. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, just to say that overall we see the conference, or we hope the conference goes indeed beyond discussions, results action. And on the EU side, as I was saying, we are committed to support Kenya in this journey. We see e-mobility not just as a mean to meet climate goals, but also as a catalyst for economic growth, for job creation, for a just transition. And this is why we want to invest in it. In closing, let me congratulate Kenya Power, JZ as well, for organizing the conference. We see it as a further proof of Kenya's will to lead on sustainable transport transition, and also a reminder that working together, progress is not only a possibility, it's inevitable. Asante sana, thank you very much. Sorry. And let me call now into the stage His Excellency the Ambassador of Germany, Sebastian Groth. Ambassador.
Thank you very much for this friendly introduction. Good morning, CSOP Wandai. Good morning, PS Wachira. Good morning, the representatives of Kenya Power and all the stakeholders of the sector. E-mobility, I'm very happy to be here. And I was really impressed by the tour that we did already this morning and all the products that you show, and how it was said earlier how energetic the sector is in Kenya. When we look to when we compare the first conference that we did, that you did, and today's conference, I think we really see that we are beyond the stage of concepts or planning. We're really implementing together, or you are implementing together, real e-mobility revolution here in Kenya, and what is happening in Ethiopia is even more impressive. We saw the numbers during the presentation, and I'm pretty sure that this is just the beginning of a very, very strong dynamic that we will see in the next years. So alone in 2026, global sales of electric vehicles continue to rise more than 20%. By 2035, electric vehicles are expected to make up around 55% of global new car sales. And I think this is probably more the lower end of the estimations if we see the effects of the ongoing Middle East crisis and the high level of prices for fossil fuels. This really gives another push for the whole sector. So Africa will be a key driver of this development. I'm pretty sure about this. But Europe is also already the second largest electric vehicles market. Approximately 70% of all new passenger cars in Europe in January were electrified. In Germany, and you must know that in Germany, we love our combustive engines very much. And I learned a new term also today called range anxiety. So probably we are collectively anxious, range anxious. But I also read in one of the newspapers, there's so much progress in the battery technology. They are now having a battery with a range of 1,500 kilometers, and you charge it in 5 minutes from 0 to 90%. So this whole sector also of innovation and of electrochemistry will see a lot of breakthroughs in the next years. And Kenya is at the heart of this. And Europe, as was said earlier, and Germany are reaching out also to Kenya to make this revolution happen. We convene here today, and you convene the next 2 days here amid an unprecedented fuel crisis, sparking a global push for energy security and independence, which is then also accelerating the momentum for renewable energy and more downstream also for electric mobility. And we need this because we are still not ambitious enough in reducing emissions and improving air quality. We all know that the world is struggling with the emission goals that we set ourselves in Paris and in the ensuing COPs that we organized, and where Kenya is also playing a very, very important role. But the transport sector and mobility sector still contributes a lot to global emissions, and e-mobility will be one of the key drivers, I think, to bring emissions down in this sector. And we saw this impressive truck both outside and during the presentation. And if you count the numbers of trucks alone between Nairobi and Mombasa every day and switch this to electricity, this will really have a big impact already also on the emissions. But it's also important for job creation. As was also said earlier, it's a whole ecosystem that will be built up and is in the process of being built up here in Kenya and around the world. And this is also why we as Germany and the German Ministry for Cooperation and also with GIZ and also the Minister for Cooperation, who was here in April, visited and are strong partners of the sector. And the Minister visited a Kenyan e-mobility company, which is also represented here today, Kiri EV. And she learned how electromobility promotes entrepreneurship and supports local value addition. And there was also an exchange with a local Boda Boda driver who explained us how his personal situation and his costs-benefit ratio changed with the help of this e-mobility investment. So we think that Kenya is uniquely positioned to be a leader in Africa's e-mobility transition. You have a predominantly renewable power system with a surplus power at night and exceptional and strategic advantage. And in just the last 3 years, the new registrations for EVs have surged from only a few hundred to almost 40,000, as we have seen also at the presentation. And one of the key enablers there, and this goes out to Kenya Power, is the e-mobility tariff, 8 shillings during off-peak hours, 16 during peak hours, and that helps a lot, I think, to bring this cost advantage of e-mobility really to the streets and to the consumers. And we are also encouraged by the recent declaration of His Excellency President Ruto that the first 100,000 electric vehicles to to be imported into Kenya will be duty-free. And during our visit, we had an exchange with one of the managers of the e-mobility companies who told us that this will reduce the price by nearly 50% of importation, which is a significant delta and makes it even more attractive. You get a good e-mobility car for 3 million shilling, which is round about 20,000 euros. That's really a good price, I think. So further support for the sector could accelerate electric vehicle adoption even further and strengthen Kenya's position as a leader in e-mobility in Africa. We are and we have been a long-term partner for Kenya, not only in the areas of employment promotion, of agriculture and TVET, but also in the fight against the adverse impact of climate change. In 2022, we signed a climate and development partnership. And through this partnership, Germany is, for example, supporting the continued expansion of renewable energies in Kenya. This goes into the geothermal sector, hydro, but also wind and solar. And so far, Germany supported in this area to provide 470 megawatts of power generation capacity, power that is both relatively cheap and, of course, environmentally friendly. And we also support Kenya in the area of electric mobility. We are proud to support Kenya's government in the ongoing electric mobility policy implementation, and it was only a few months ago that we gathered here at KICC also to launch the e-mobility policy framework, where GIZ also and German government played an instrumental role. So we are partnering also with vocational institutions, that was also mentioned earlier, to ensure Kenya has a critical mass of expertise to offer services for the operation and maintenance of electric vehicles. So we are directly supporting 5 small and medium-sized companies that are working on improving access to electric mobility products and services. So I think we all have seen in the latest transport disruptions and increases in the fossil fuels that the benefits of e-mobility extend far beyond environmental sustainability. It's about money. And with millions of Kenyans relying on public transport for their daily commute, the implications of a global fuel price hike are immediate, economically and socially. So the poorest households sometimes spend 30 to 50% of their income on daily transport, and e-mobility can also help to bring this down. And by reducing the dependency on imported fossil fuels, the savings on foreign exchange can be directed to other pressing social and economic interventions. So it seems to be the right moment to adopt a balanced policy of targeted and time-bound tax incentives, and at the same time adopt ambitious measures that enable the private sector to build on the strong momentum. And I think the stakeholders that are gathering today and tomorrow around this cluster of e-mobility is really a very dynamic and a very energetic crowd. And I wish you really all the best for this conference, but also for the expansion of the sector here in Kenya, and you can really count on Germany's support. Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm the one who announces now the guest of honor from the Kenyan government. I can do it because we know each other for 3.5 years, which is a long time in diplomacy and politics. And I really appreciate the cooperation with you personally, with PS Pajira also very much, and also the institutional cooperation that we have with GIZ, KfW and your ministry. We have our government negotiations in 3 weeks from now in Berlin, where we set the priorities for the next 2-year cycle of development cooperation. And I can assure you that this central subject of climate and energy policy and our cooperation with the Ministry for Energy will be at the center of these negotiations, and we are very much hoping to continue this fruitful cooperation. So may I now invite the Honorable CS Energy, Opio Wandai, to deliver his remarks. Give him a big hand, please. And next time you can hire me as an MC also.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you very much, Balozi Sebastian. I want to ride on the protocol that has already been established, but also to acknowledge that we have in our presence the Principal Secretary for the State Department for Energy, Bwana Alex Washira. You should have been called to say something, but now, no problem. Let me start by appreciating how far we have come as a country, in this space of e-mobility. And it is indeed a great pleasure for me to join you today for this very important conference that really focuses on the future of e-mobility in Kenya and indeed in the entire region. And the theme of this conference, as I've been advised, aligning policy, infrastructure, and partnership to scale e-mobility in Kenya could not be more appropriate. Now, around the world, our nations are rethinking how people and goods move. And Kenya is at the forefront in this transformation. I'm very happy that the speakers before me have painted a glowing picture of the results of the work that has been done over the years regarding e-mobility. As a country, we are uniquely positioned to lead the electric mobility transition for obvious reasons. Approximately 90%, actually more than 90% of our electricity generation comes from the renewable energy sources. And this means that every electric vehicle charged in Kenya is powered by one of the cleanest electricity grids in the world, creating a powerful synergy between our energy and transport sectors. It creates a model from which others can truly learn. Now today, Kenya's energy story is one of expansion, inclusion, and sustainability. Over the last few decades, electricity access in this country has grown dramatically, with millions of households getting connected through strategic investments, such as the last mile connectivity program. And Kenya is steadily advancing towards universal access. Actually, we are poised to meet our target of 2030, ensuring that the benefits of modern energy reach every citizen and every enterprise. Now, electric mobility has the potential to create immense benefits to our people because of the key role that transporters, indeed transportation, play in our economy. Now, this growing access to electricity is not only lighting homes and powering businesses, it is indeed creating the foundation upon which electric mobility can thrive. Electric mobility is no longer a future concept, as has been aptly put a while back. It is already transforming our roads through electric motorcycles, buses, private vehicles, and commercial fleets. The government has further demonstrated this commitment through the launch of the National Electric Mobility Policy, which I'm sure most of us are conversant with. And that policy provides a clear framework for accelerating EV adoption, strengthening charging infrastructure, enhancing grid readiness, and supporting local manufacturing and innovation. I am sure and has been already indicated by most of the speakers. The landmark declaration by His Excellency the President, which underscores the government's commitment to this transition, okay, of exempting the first 100,000 units imported from import duty, okay. This announcement to deploy thousands of electric vehicles within public service fleet is part of the bold policy signal that has come from the government, and it demonstrates Kenya's intention to become a leading electric mobility hub on the African continent. Now, however, vehicles alone do not create an e-mobility ecosystem. Our focus as a government is therefore on building the enabling infrastructure that is required for sustainable growth. We are working closely with utilities, and they are here, most of them. County governments, investors, and technology providers to expand charging networks, strengthen grid infrastructure, and ensure that charging solutions are accessible, reliable, and above all, affordable across the country. The charging station of the future must become as ubiquitous and as dependable as today's fuel stations. At the same time, we recognize that this transition presents significant economic opportunities. It offers new industries, new jobs, local manufacturing possibilities, skills development opportunities, and innovation ecosystems that can position Kenya as a regional center for green transport technologies. So, ladies and gentlemen, the transition to e-mobility is not merely about charging vehicles. It's about enhancing energy security, reducing dependence on imported fossil fuels, improving air quality, lowering transport costs, and building a resilient green economy for present and future generations. Kenya has the renewable energy resources necessary for a unique electric mobility development. We have the policy commitment, and we have entrepreneurial skills and talent. Interestingly, Kenya has the infrastructure needed to support this transformation. The task ahead of us, therefore, is to deepen collaboration and accelerate implementation. We have no excuse, but to move forward. So I want to thank all the teams that have been involved in putting together this conference and that have continued to play a significant role in the e-mobility space for the collaboration. Together, I believe we can build an electric-powered transport future that is cleaner, more inclusive, more competitive, and truly African. I wish you fruitful deliberations and every success at this conference and Expo. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless Kenya. Asanteni sana. And without any prodding, may I be allowed to declare this conference now officially open? Conference imefunguliwa kirasmi. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Waziri, for gracing this occasion. All protocols observed, noting that ambassador from Germany is around, the EU ambassador, our board, which have actually come in person, and in the last 3-4 years, they have really worked with us. Our own Alex, the PS, who is energy himself. I have a story about this conference. It started on a very low, and all of you can attest. You saw Esbon, the president, talk about where we were and where we are. And I think how we started agitating for this was to start it where KPLC was also to buy the vehicles. And the board in its support also questioned us on how we start actually buying what is E. And we were thinking of the terrains. The terrains were tough across the country, but I think we are walking the talk from where we sit. Looking at the numbers now, where we are now at around 35,000, it's a story that needs to be listened to by everyone. And in this conference, the first conference, we are looking at how do we keep growing. And I think in the next sessions, we'll be inviting panels to actually tell us where challenges are, where we are, what we think we can improve. And I think in the next 3, 4, 5 years, it's a story to
back.
tell.
This is live from the Kenyatta International Convention Center, where we are attending the 4th annual e-mobility conference and exhibitions, where stakeholders surrounding the e-mobility space have come to deliberate on issues e-mobility. Remember, e-mobility in Kenya is growing, and stakeholders are meeting here to see how more they can input, how much they can input into the sector to make sure that we meet the KPIs that has been set forward. This theme for this annual e-mobility stakeholders conference and expo is aligning a policy, infrastructure development and a partnership to scale e-mobility in Kenya. And we did hear from various stakeholders, including the government, where the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, Opiyo Wandayi, saying that the government is fully behind the implementation of the national e-mobility policy that was launched last year, and that the various parameters that need to be met, the government has committed itself to make sure that the ecosystem is complete. Part of this ecosystem includes the charging infrastructure and the incentives that come along with bringing in EVs into the country. Remember, the President, Dr. William Ruto, did announce that the government would wave 100,000 new EVs into the country so that they improve and bring back the issue of demand into the country of EVs. And that is how we wrap it up here at the conference. Do stay tuned for subsequent bulletins where we bring for you a complete comprehensive package of this conference. My name is Alan Auko. I do hand you back to Broadcasting House for normal programming.
And Kenya Power took us to Addis for the road to Addis. They helped us power that journey, and now they helped us power the journey from Nairobi to Mombasa. Seeing as I had failed to find a wife in Ethiopia,
Who are you really? Who I am isn't important. What's important is that you keep in mind what I've said about the pagoda tree.
I think I know how to get you to talk.
I assure you, nothing I've said is a lie.
Some things you're better off not remembering. What happened here fits the bill.
Hebu fikiria environment kama hii hapa Western Kenya. Eti mtu atatoka hapa aende Nairobi kusoma university to conquer the world. Mimi Andrew nitahakikisha hiyo ndoto imezimwa. Tazama hayo yote kwa Gundu KBC Tuesday to Thursday 7:30 p.m. Leo sio kesho.
Good morning and welcome. This is KBC Biz Check on this Thursday, the 4th of June 2026, and after that e-mobility conference that is that's happening right here in Nairobi, it's time to look at what is happening in the business world. Time to make sense of shillings and cents in business, and we're making sense of one big project, and that is the budget 2026-2027, an ambitious one, 4.82 trillion shillings. That is a live discussion that we'll be having here, and we do expect that the Treasury CS will be reading that budget on Thursday of next week, when he will walk out with the ambitious multi-trillion shillings plan for the country. And we are looking at past the political speeches and also understand the actual math